The morning sun cast long shadows across Springfield Avenue as Marcus Reynolds, 32, maintained his steady pace. Sweat glistened on his dark skin, his breath forming small clouds in the crisp autumn air. This route through Oak Ridge Estates, with its manicured lawns and stately homes, offered the perfect 5-mile loop before his shift at Memorial Hospital. Marcus nodded politely at Mrs. Zhang watering her prized roses. She waved back. 6 months into his new home purchase in the neighboring Cedar Heights, he still felt the eyes that followed him here, questioning, wondering, assuming. But today felt different, better somehow. His new wireless earbuds pumped motivational beats as his running shoes hit the pavement in perfect rhythm. Unknown to Marcus, from behind the burgundy curtains of 447 Springfield Avenue, Edward Bennett watched, phone already in hand, finger hovering over the emergency call button. Edward Bennett paced his living room, peering through the curtains every few seconds. 911, what's your emergency? The dispatcher's voice crackled through his phone. Yes, hello. There's a suspicious man running through our neighborhood, Edward said, his voice hushed but urgent. He's been circling the block, looking at houses. I think he might be casing them. Can you describe this person, sir? Black male, athletic build, wearing a gray hoodie. He doesn't belong here. Edward's voice rose. I've never seen him before. The dispatcher remained calm. Is he displaying any threatening behavior? Well, no, but, Edward huffed. He keeps looking at houses. It's suspicious. Outside, Marcus slowed his pace, adjusting his music. He took a swig from his water bottle, completely unaware of the storm brewing. 2 streets over, a police cruiser turned onto Springfield Avenue, lights flashing but no siren. Officer Tanya Rodriguez checked the address one more time as her partner, Officer James Walsh, scanned the street for anyone matching the caller's description. The police cruiser pulled alongside Marcus, who removed his earbuds and stopped jogging. His heart sank. Not again. Good morning, sir, Officer Rodriguez said, stepping out of the vehicle. Mind if we talk for a moment? Marcus nodded, hands visible at his sides. Of course, officer. We received a call about someone suspicious in the area. Can I ask what you're doing here today? Just my morning run, ma'am. I live in Cedar Heights, about 2 miles that way. Marcus pointed east. I run this route 3 times a week. Officer Walsh circled behind him while Edward Bennett emerged from his house, arms crossed. That's him. That's the suspicious person. Edward shouted. I've never seen him around here before. Officer Rodriguez held up her hand. Sir, please stay back. She turned to Marcus. Do you have any ID with you? Yes, in my runner's pouch. Marcus slowly reached for his waist pack. He might have a weapon. Edward yelled. Rodriguez shot Edward a stern look. Sir, please return to your home or I'll have to ask you to leave the scene entirely. Marcus produced his hospital ID and driver's license. I'm a respiratory therapist at Memorial. Started 6 months ago. Officer Rodriguez examined the IDs, then nodded respectfully. Thank you, Dr. Reynolds. Sorry to interrupt your run. He could have stolen those. Edward protested, now standing at his property line. Officer Walsh stepped forward. Body cameras are recording, sir. Please be mindful of false accusations. The commotion drew curious neighbors from their homes. Mrs. Zhang approached, garden shears still in hand. Marcus, is everything okay? She turned to the officers. He runs by my house 3 times a week. Always waves hello. From across the street, Thomas Franklin, a retired judge, strode over. Officers, I can vouch for this young man. He helped my wife when she fell in her garden last month. Stayed with her until the ambulance arrived. Edward's face reddened. You people don't understand the dangers. What dangers, Bennett? Thomas interrupted sharply. The danger of having a healthcare professional in our neighborhood? Another neighbor, Sophia Patel, joined the growing circle. That's Dr. Reynolds from Memorial. He saved my father during his cardiac episode. Perhaps you should be thanking him rather than harassing him. Edward retreated a step, looking increasingly isolated as more neighbors gathered. Officer Rodriguez observed the scene with interest, her initial suspicion completely dissolved by the community's response. "Marcus, I'm so sorry about this," Mrs. Zhang whispered, patting his arm gently. Officer Rodriguez's body camera captured everything: Edward's shifting accusations, the neighbors' testimonials, and Marcus's calm dignity throughout the ordeal. 3 days later, the footage went viral after being released through proper channels. "I've reviewed the incident thoroughly," Police Chief Daniels announced at a press conference, voice firm and unwavering. Officer Rodriguez handled the situation professionally, but this never should have happened. "We're implementing additional training to address racial bias in emergency calls." News vans lined Springfield Avenue as residents gathered on the community green. Marcus stood among them, no longer an outsider but the center of a supportive circle. "This isn't just about me," Marcus addressed the assembled crowd, his voice clear in the evening air. "This happens every day to people who don't have neighbors brave enough to speak up. Today, we change that narrative." Edward Bennett watched the coverage from his living room, blinds drawn. His phone rang continuously, the neighborhood association, his workplace, reporters seeking comment. The truth was inescapable now, documented and undeniable. Community leader Grace Wilson took the microphone next. "Today we stand united against bias and fear. Springfield has always prided itself on being a welcoming community. Now we must live up to that promise." The crowd erupted in applause as Marcus and Mrs. Zhang embraced, tears streaming down her weathered face. 1 week later, the Oak Ridge Community Center buzzed with activity. Residents filled every seat for the emergency town hall meeting. Marcus sat in the front row beside Thomas Franklin and Mrs. Zhang. Mayor Laura Chen approached the podium. "Tonight is about accountability and growth. We cannot change what happened, but we can determine what happens next." The community board announced new initiatives: bias awareness workshops, a neighborhood welcome committee, and regular cultural exchange events. The proposals passed unanimously. In the back corner, Edward Bennett shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The company where he'd worked as vice president for 15 years had placed him on administrative leave. His neighbors no longer made eye contact. His isolation was self-inflicted. When Edward finally spoke, his voice trembled. I made assumptions based on fear, not facts. Dr. Reynolds, I can't undo what I did, but I'm willing to learn from it." Marcus studied Edward's face for several long seconds before responding. "Learning is a start. Actions will matter more." As the meeting concluded, Marcus invited Edward to join the newly formed community dialogue group. "Healing isn't automatic. It requires effort from everyone involved." Outside, streetlights illuminated neighbors walking home together, talking animatedly about plans for the upcoming community picnic. Marcus smiled, watching diverse families sharing their visions for a better neighborhood. Sometimes, justice came with unexpected gifts, like belonging.